Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and sorry about the door. Welcome to the second presidential debate. Now, this debate was an interesting one. I do believe that... This camera here? Okay. I do believe we're going to cover as much as possible from the debate. I'm not going to cover every point because there's just too many points to cover. Now, I wish to say early that the moderator did a very bad job. Now, if there's going to be some people that's going to be happy that she did a bad job, but I believe she did a very bad job. That the moderator in this type of debate is only supposed to give questions and direct the candidates to questions from the audience. That's all she was supposed to do. She's also supposed to keep order and make sure the candidates don't talk to each other or talk over each other. She did a bad job with that. I'll explain later. So this is what happened. We had several questions coming from the audience, and I'm going to cover as many as I can and try to make them as easy as possible to understand for yourself and for me, because I don't want to be totally confused trying to explain it to you when I don't understand it myself. And I'm going to say clearly right now, I don't know it all. I'm not going to say I know it all, and I'm hoping that whatever you take from this, you'll have an open mind about it. Being whatever you are, Democratic or Republican, conservative or liberal, it makes no difference. This is about trying to understand the process of voting and understanding to have an open mind about hearing information from different sources and seeing other than what the candidates look like, ergo where a lot of people I've seen, and I'm not being racist, many people who are black and Spanish voted because of this. I didn't do that, but I've known people who have done it, where only this cared about them. And like in my vice presidential debate, I'm hoping you'll take away from this that the most important thing is understanding the process of our government. Not caring so much about the rhetoric and the name calling. This is about understanding, giving your 2 bits in, and wanting a better life for yourself and your family. That's how it is. So let's go on with the debate. The first thing they talked about, well, roughly, is going to be about energy. Now, the president tried to talk mainly about green jobs. Now, the problem is that when Romney came to task on him, he made it very clear green jobs are very low. And I'm sure many people are going to say, oh, there are green jobs out there. Yes, there are. But green jobs, particularly the one that the president talked about, was wind power. He didn't really talk very large, lengthy on solar. Not very large. And geothermic, I don't know if they talk clearly about this, but those type of green jobs, they're very sporadic. Now, how do I mean by that? Geographically, of this country, some states have wind turbine generators. They do have them, but they're not prolific throughout every state in this union. They're not. Those type of jobs only work when the resource to make it work is there. Now, you could say solar power is everywhere, yes, but if it's able to be used in that sense, let's say a place where you know there's always going to be sun, like Death Valley, would be great for it. But maybe in a place that's always cloudy in Maine for solar power won't work. If 90% of the time there's clouds, it's not going to work that well. Wind power is the same thing. Wherever it's always going to be extremely windy, they work. Wind turbines work very well only in places where there's a good amount of that type of resource, which is wind. The president didn't do very well at that. And when they started talking about petroleum gas, this is where it came down to. The president wanted to try and make sure we become fuel independent, in other words, oil independent. But he didn't talk about trying to use the resource we have. Now, if no one understands how much oil we have, it's already been documented that we have more oil than anyone on the planet, even more than the Saudi Arabians, even more in the people of Iraq, even more in the people in Kuwait. We have more oil than anyone on this planet. we stopped drilling major amounts of oils by the 1950s. I mean, we still drill, and I'm not saying we don't drill, ladies and gentlemen, but we don't drill as much as we used to. A lot of regulations cut that off, and by the 1950s, we started getting oil overseas. That was done by the different administrations back then. I believe one of the administrations that dealt with it was Truman. I'm not sure about it, but I'm sure that it was some of the agreements that were reached did go through the Truman administration. So when it comes down to it, we don't drill much, and we have more oil than anyone. We have many different natural resources. Romney was talking about trying to get as much oil as possible from offshore drilling, from onshore drilling that is on federal land, and from Canada. And Canada has a very large amount of oil. That's in what they call, I believe, shell. Now, that's not an actual liquid form of oil. It's more of an oil that's locked up in rocks. And they found a way to extract that oil out of the rocks. They have a huge resource themselves. So that's what Romney talked about, but the president really didn't want to talk about drilling in this country. And when it came to talking about licenses to drill in the United States, I don't know the exact name of it. I don't think it's called licenses, but to have the permission to drill in this country by many of the oil companies, and you can say the evil oil companies, they don't care, they want to rob us. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes down to it, one of the ways that we bring down our own problems when it comes to oil is for us to drill on our own land and also drill off our own shores. If you like it or not, worrying about there going to be a spill, there are ways to take care of that. The people in the Middle East have been dealing with it for many years. They have the type of equipment and people from different countries who know how to deal with it. One of them is the Dutch. The Dutch have been specifically trained in how to deal with oil spills offshore. So this is something that can be done in this country, and the president didn't want to cover that. And what I said about the licenses, many licenses have been cut from this country. That means many oil companies have not been given authorization to drill. And Romney took the task to the president. The president did not want to answer that, saying, how many licenses or permissions did you give in these last 4 years? And the president said, we've been allowed to drill, but if you check with CNN, CNBC, and Fox, they have research that clearly said it, and the news is that drilling in the United States has dropped. When it was with Clinton, they had high drilling. When it came to both Bushes, no matter if you liked them or not, they allowed high drilling. Barack Obama dropped it by half, or near half. So he really didn't win this part of the debate. Now I'm going to move on to immigration. When it came to immigration, and I believe it's called Universal. I could be pronouncing it wrong. I don't watch the Spanish network, but when the president was interviewed on there, and he basically was asked so many questions about why he didn't do his immigration reform or amnesty, he had no answer. This is not what I'm saying or believe. This is what was shown on television on most of the networks. So one of the people in the audience, just like with the energy question, this question was about immigration, and this is what roughly that audience member said. They asked him, you promised in your first term, in other words, your first year of office, the first part of your term, your first year in office, that you would sign not only immigration reform, but amnesty. Why didn't you do it? He didn't answer the question. He basically tried to make it sound very good to care about immigrants, to care about their kids, to make sure they're educated, to make sure these people have a ability to have a path to becoming American citizens. But he didn't answer the question directly. When it came to Romney, he brought it up immediately, saying, the president, just like this person said, and I don't remember the person's name, but the person's name was mentioned. That's how the town hall meeting works. And Romney addressed them and said, look, you're right. Why hasn't the president answered this? You just asked him. He refused to answer it. But I'll tell you what I would do. For amnesty, and Romney made it very clear, he doesn't want amnesty at all. He wants to give the people right now an ability to become Americans, but the right way. This is how basically I understood what he was saying. We have a lot of people who want to come in this country legally. Many people have to wait years for authorization to get into this country. They have to wait a long time once they're authorized by their own country to be allowed to work here or allowed to live here by visa. Excuse me. If they have that authorization and they are able to get the visa, they stay here between 6 months to a year, counting on how long the visa lasts, and then they can make a request to have another visa and become a resident. And if they want to become American citizens, they can do it that way. When it comes to illegal aliens, they completely forego that. When they come here, it doesn't matter if they're Mexican, Chinese, Russian, African. I've met some people who were legal and they weren't Mexican. But I also met people who were Mexican that were illegal. It makes no difference. I met them both. And the thing that he said was for people who are already here legally, he's not saying to collect them up by the National Guard and kick them out. He does say that they should have the choice to leave because he wants to limit the ability for them to work. Now, I'm sure many people say, oh, there's a lot of jobs out there people don't want to do. Listen, yes, there is. But it should go to people. If they're immigrants here legally, it should go to them. If it's American citizens, no matter if it's a job at McDonald's or digging up the ground in farming, it should go to people who legally come here, waiting several years to get a visa, who either want to just come here as a work visa or as a visitor's visa or any other type of visa. They should have the right to be able to come here and find work. And for American citizens, if you're black, if you're white, if you're Spanish, it makes no difference. If you're able to get to the place where that job is, and believe me, there are a lot of people who are willing to dig in the dirt to farm if they'll get a good amount of money out of it. Get something out of it, they'll do it. If they're willing to sling hamburgers at a McDonald's or a fast food place or a joint, they're going to do it. So that little bit about jobs that nobody wants to do, there are jobs out there that people want, but it should go to people who follow the rules, not the people who don't. And I'm not being evil and cruel to people who come in here who want a better life. I'm not. Anyone who has to come here illegally, well, if it's because they're coming from, like, Cuba, which at the time we had an embargo against them, China, where it's very communistic, and they're coming here as well in basically containers across the sea. There are certain situations about it. But if they come here legally, hide, and don't want to become a part of the process of this country, Romney's basically saying that he wants to make sure that when it comes to companies and small business, they are controlled in that. They do not have any rights to hire anybody that is illegal. He wants to put more regulation on that. And I think self-deportation is called. Simply put, self-deportation, the way he described it is this. You come here legally. If you're not trying to become an American citizen, you're just trying to get work. To either send the money back to your family if it's in Mexico or somewhere else, or any other way, or try to get an education, but still you don't want to become an American citizen, you can leave. Self-deportation means basically, if you can't find no work here, go back home. Because that's what the way it's supposed to be. You want to be here, come here legally. If you come here legally, do the process of becoming an American citizen. Go through the path. One way is the military. He didn't say the other ways, where there are ways of working through ICE. And you can do that. But if you're not willing to do that, then when there are no jobs, you should go home. For the children of immigrants, I do not agree with this, because in many different countries in the world, they don't allow this. In the United States, and many people would say children who are born here had perfect right, even if they're from illegal children. I'm going to say this clearly, ladies and gentlemen. That is now the way it is now. Anyone who's illegal, who has children here, they're considered American citizens. Now, if no one knows this, I'm going to say this clearly, and this is the truth. The 14th Amendment was originally created, if I'm right about the number of the amendment. If I'm wrong about the number of the amendment, if it's not the 14th, I'm sorry. Like I said, I don't know it all. But that particular amendment was created during the Civil War. Because many of the states, right after the Civil War, which was around 1866, after the war was over, between 1866, I believe, to 1868 to 1869, between those years, the states were still very, very apprehensive, allowing slaves, which were black people, to have the rights to be full American citizens. So it was decided that the children of the slaves, and I could also be wrong about the date for that amendment. Don't get too angry. But basically, that amendment was originally created for the children of the slaves. That it's allowing people who were originally slaves to have children, and those children, even if they had to live through segregation, would be considered full American citizens. Now, as you already know, in the turn of the 20th century, which is 1900, 1901, 1902, 1905, people from different countries really started coming to America heavily through Ellis Island. So they expanded that amendment that was originally created for children who were the children from the slaves to be used for anyone else. So this original rule, this amendment was created for them. Now, anywhere else in the world, and going back to what I'm talking about with children, they don't let them become citizens of their country. France, particularly, makes children wait 10 years. If they're infants, they have to wait 10 years before they can be allowed to even petition from their parents to become French citizens. I don't agree with this, with the 14th Amendment anymore, because the 14th Amendment doesn't apply anymore, because originally it was really meant for immigrants who come here legally. It was never meant for illegal immigrants. And I've heard people say it left and right, the 14th Amendment, if it's the 14th Amendment, it's for illegal immigrants, that anybody can have children here. But it was never designed for that. So I really believe that Romney is wrong about it, and I myself personally don't agree with it. This is an objective view about this debate, but this particular part of the debate, I believe that the amendment should be changed a bit for illegal children that are born here. They should have to petition to become American citizens. They shouldn't be given it anymore, because it's not like it was back 100 years ago, particularly that their parents came here legally. So I'm going to move on from that. And the one who won that battle, I believe, was Mitt Romney, but Barack Obama did a very good job in it. I'm not going to say he didn't, but I believe he did win that debate. Next, we have women's issues. This was brought up twice. One was about women's pay, and I believe it was directed towards Barack Obama. I could be wrong. And a woman asked, how are you going to increase the pay for women to make it fair, because men make more than women? They make maybe 70, I think they said 70% less. I could be wrong with the number. But they make less, which is obvious. Women don't make as much as men, which is wrong. I don't agree with it. A woman, if she has the ability to work like a man, either in construction or police or in the corporate world, it makes no difference. They have the perfect right to have the same amount of money. Now, the president was talking about one bill, I think the Button bill, I believe. I forgot the full name of it, but he said he pushed for that bill should be implemented to give women more rights to have a regular full pay. I can understand that. I agree with it. He had a good point. Mitt Romney also talked about trying to make sure that women have more rights to have the same amount of pay as men, and also have more flexibility in a job if it's capable. Because of women being in the workplace, things are different now. Women also take care of kids and work in the workplace. And there should be an adjustment from any type of job, small business, if it's possible. So this is something that he said. Now, how do I feel about it? Romney and Barack Obama pretty much were almost dead even. I can't really tell who was the clear winner. Many people will probably say, you stupid, Barack Obama was the winner. Or some people say, Mitt Romney was the winner. You could say that, but they were both pretty much almost dead even. I can't really say who was the clear ahead on that topic. But I can say on contraceptives for women being implemented through the job, there was a clear advantage for one of the candidates. Barack Obama made it very clear. The government should still give out contraceptives. There shouldn't be any problem with it. And businesses should be required to give this to women. And it shouldn't be a problem. Now, what Mitt Romney said, and I believe he's correct in this, and I'm going to say this very clearly early, for any women who are watching this, I am not trying to be disrespectful to you, but I'm going to say this clearly, the same for men. It covers the same thing for both sexes. What Mitt Romney said was the jobs the women work for, the businesses, should not be required to do this. Not unless they want to. But essentially they don't have to. And he didn't say this, but essentially speaking, women doing this is a choice. He didn't say it, but it is. Now I'm going to say it like this. When women, just like an abortion, and it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with it, women still have a choice to do the abortion or don't do the abortion. It's still their choice with their body. When it comes to contraceptives, and no disrespect, ladies, if you're willing to open your legs for a man, or a woman for that matter, but this is about men, excuse me, if you're willing to open your legs for a man and let him have sex with you, you're choosing this. This is a conscious choice. It's not like for maternity leave, which is required by law. If you have a child and counting on the job, you could have 6 months off. You can have 1 month off. You can have 4 months off. It's a requirement that maternity leave be in the job description. That's a requirement now. It varies could be from job to job or from state to state. I can't tell you what the numbers are, if it's a constant 1 year up or 6 months up or 3 months up. It depends. But essentially, with maternity leave is totally different. You carried a child. You gave birth to that child. You are required, the job is required to give you time to recover so you can be with your child, recover your body, come back and work properly. With contraceptives, this is a choice. You're spreading your legs just like a man is unzipping his zip and placing himself inside a woman. That's a choice. That is 100% a choice. And contraceptives for men and women should not be required by their jobs. Unless it's part of the sex industry where it is required to make sure they don't have diseases. I'm making it very clear. There are certain such situations where contraceptives for women is very important. And the porn industry does that now. They didn't do it before, now they do. But essentially speaking, for any other type of job that doesn't revolve around sex, this is not a requirement. If you're willing to open your legs, or if you're willing to unzip your zip, ladies and gentlemen, you don't deserve contraceptives. Not men, not women from your job. So I agree with Romney, and Romney really won that part of that debate. Now, when it comes to Planned Parenthood, when Barack Hussein Obama said that Planned Parenthood is more than just making sure women are able to have choices, are able to have abortions, are able to take care of their kids, but also talking about getting mammograms and getting that type of health care through that, I was actually taken very surprised. Planned Parenthood doesn't really cover doing mammograms or any type of thing like that. It's not directly designed for that. So I don't believe he was very accurate about that. Planned Parenthood does not fully cover that. If there's certain circumstances because of what happened to the mother, I can understand. But saying that that is part of it, like in their health care plan, that was not accurate. And Mitt Romney didn't really take him fully to task to that. But he still said it, and I'm sure many people are going to agree that he's right. So by perception, you can say Barack Obama won it, even though Mitt Romney was more accurate. That Planned Parenthood doesn't fully cover that, but it's not supposed to be taken out. That's what Barack Obama said for Mitt Romney, that he wants to remove it. And I say this clearly, these programs are not going to disappear, ladies and gentlemen. Planned Parenthood is not going away if Mitt Romney's in office. People can say whatever they want, but with the way the House of Representatives is structured, they're not going to allow it to go. They're not. No matter if a president is Republican or Democratic. Because George Walker Bush and Herbert Bush didn't get rid of it. And one of them cares more about pro-life than pro-choice. He didn't get rid of it. It's still there. Now, when it came to the economy and talking about middle income, basically the middle class, both of them talked very eloquently about it. Their philosophies about who is supposed to pay more are very different. When it came to Barack Obama, he believes the top 1% should pay more. Increase the amount they're paying, which could be between 40 to 60%. And understand this, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter if you like basically the rich. It doesn't make a difference. Rich people pay the majority of taxes, which has been proven already. When it comes to people that are in low income or just under the middle class, they don't pay taxes. They pay the taxes for their job, but the heavy amount of taxes that normally are paid, they don't do it. Not saying they don't pay taxes. I'm saying this clearly again. They still pay their FICA. They still pay for Social Security. They still pay the state, and they still pay local. But there are some cases where some of them do not pay that. There's some that don't pay. And the one who pays even more, the majority, are in that tax bracket. So they pay a chunk of their change. And for example, let's say a person gets $100 a month. Just for example. I could say 1,000, but you know what? I'll say 1,000 a month. Let's say the 1% pays 1,000 a month. And these are just exaggerated numbers. This isn't accurate. And normally they pay maybe 60% out of that month, which could be basically out of 60% out of 1,000 could be maybe $600. They still have $400 to work with Barack Obama making his thinking about increasing that to 70 to 90%. So the people, even though they have millions of dollars, monthly they take 70 to 90%. That could be between $700 to $900. And I wish to say clearly that many people who are rich, and I've met some people who have actually been rich. I'm surprised I actually met one when I was very young as a kid. But I've learned this, that many people do not have actual fluid cash flow. They don't. Many times, many people have their money bound up in investments, like companies, like mainly in companies, mainly in shared equities, mainly in trusts, mainly in hedge funds. You can say whatever you want, but the money's tied up in different things, and they don't have that money on hand. They're not liquid or, I believe, solvent, if the name is correct. That they don't have. They only get a certain amount each month out of the year. So people saying they're fine, they got millions of dollars, they may not. They may have millions of dollars in investments, but they may not actually have that in pocket. Some do, but most don't. Like when it comes to small business or large businesses, in corporations that's entirely different. For large businesses and corporations, they could. So I'll leave it as that. The one who won that debate, I didn't say Mitt Romney's point, sorry. Mitt Romney's point, he basically said he wants to bring taxes down on the middle class. He didn't really say a cut for them fully, but he said he wants to lower the tax rates and make a straight flat tax. Well, he didn't say flat tax. He just wanted to make a straight tax for everyone, for rich and poor. At least not the rich that is considered the 1 or 5%. He just wants to leave the tax rates for them as they are. And my understanding about how that works, simply put, you can say whatever you want that the rich people don't want to give jobs. They do. Because much of their investments are tied up in some type of business or some type of fund to make sure they have their business work. They have to hire people. If they can't make a profit, and I've heard people say, basically, businesses don't deserve profits. Take their money. Make sure they only run on bare minimum. But that's the problem. If you make people run bare minimum, how do they expand? It's like, putting it simply, if you have a car, and this car is taking you from one place to another, like a taxi, and it's working well enough that you can make enough money to keep it going. If you want to make people notice your taxi, maybe you need to do a paint job on it. Maybe you need to put a better engine on it to be more fuel efficient so you can go farther than you originally can. Maybe you want to put stereo system or television or DVD player in there to make them entertain. But that's got to come out of any profits you get. You have to have extra. You need a surplus. Even if it doesn't feel right that someone's going to have maybe more than others who do the same thing. Yes, but that's how you make, in this case, your car better for business. This is how businesses work. They have a surplus. They have enough to give to their workers. They have enough to keep their mortgage or their business going with their lights, with their water, whatever. To keep their internet going, they have to have enough money. And if they have enough to go beyond that, that's enough for expansion. That's how business works. You need profit. And when you limit it, no expansion. There's no reason to. So they have nothing to work with. So the one who won that, I believe, was Romney. Now, when it came to Libya, the president really lost out. And I wish to start talking about the moderator. The moderator made a seriously bad mistake. Once they started talking over each other, by the time they were talking about energy, they started talking over each other roughly. When it came to health care, they started talking over each other. When it almost came to immigration, they started talking over one another and started talking directly at each other by the time Libya came. And I also wish to say about when it came to the economy, when the president took Nick Romney and said, you know, Nick Romney only pays 14%. He doesn't have to pay like everyone else. Well, Mr. President, Nick Romney is retired. No matter if people like it or not, once you reach 65 to 68 years old, he has been retired for a good amount of years already, at least 5 or 8 years already. He's not young. Nick Romney is retired. I think he retired by 62. That is, you can do that. So even if he's rich, he can retire, and the tax bracket for him changes. Like everyone, once you reach retirement age, you don't have to pay. Some people don't even have to pay any taxes. Others in his tax bracket don't have to pay that much taxes, no matter how much you like it. And when he said, yes, I don't pay taxes, and much of my my pension or investments is in hedge funds, is in offshore businesses like China. But Mr. President, isn't yours as well? What about your own pension? You took him to task for that. And if, ladies and gentlemen, you don't know this, for anyone in Congress, anyone in the Senate, and the President, the Vice President, the Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of State, they have a pension that is tied up in hedge funds, that is tied up in offshore type of businesses, like in China, like in Venezuela, somewhere in the UK. I can't say where they all are. It counts on their plan, but essentially they do have it. The President didn't have a very good answer for that. He said, I don't check it much. And if he had, he could have said simply, you know what, you're right, but it doesn't matter. You still make 14%. He could have done that. He didn't. So he didn't win that argument about the economy, and he didn't win that argument about how Nick Romney doesn't pay his fair share in taxes. And when it came to Libya, the moderator made a serious mistake by interjecting herself. How do I say that? The moderator basically said, when the president said, he said it was terrorism right after it happened. He did not. It's already been shown on all the networks. He never said it a month ago. He didn't. It's roughly a month ago, and he didn't say it. And the moderator said, yes, he did, when he said, look in the transcript. And she agreed with him. That was not her place to do it. She made a serious mistake, and it should never have been done. The president should have really made a mistake not saying that. And saying when Hillary Clinton, and I said this in my vice presidential debate, that the person who would mostly be responsible would be Secretary of State. It was brought up, and in the news has also been brought up, that Hillary Clinton has basically taken responsibility for it. The president really didn't have a good position on that. He didn't. It was just very weak. Even though he stated that it goes with him, he didn't make it very clear. Romney sounded a lot more better, more presidential. So there's going to be 2 more points here because this is a pretty long video. I don't want to drown you with this. The look and feel of the debate between the 2 candidates. I believe between the 2 who showed not only intelligence in what they said, honesty, showing compassion and consideration for not only the people in the audience, but also the people that they're talking about. Romney won that 100%. For the simple fact that when it came to Libya, the 4 people who died, the president did not show any feeling. And you could say, oh, he's already gone through this. It's not the point. You're trying to show people that you have compassion. Romney said clearly, I am so sorry for the people who died, and I'm sorry for the families. I give my condolences. He showed compassion, no matter if you like Romney or not. If you think he's being not genuine or not, he's talking 2 sides of the face. He's not. But he did that. The president didn't want to talk about that. He was too focused on telling his viewpoints. And this is what I believe really was the bad point for the president. Throughout the entire debate, he was very focused on making sure he didn't make the same mistake he did in the first one. He was very energetic. And I heard people saying, don't worry, the president's going to be energetic. He's going to show him. He's going to kick the ass of Romney. But the problem is that being more aggressive doesn't mean you must be less compassionate and sympathetic. He was too rigid, way too aggressive. And I believe he lost out on that. Too aggressive. And when it came to the closing remarks, the president did only viewpoints. He didn't say what would make people change their mind about him from the rhetoric that was said. This is what's the last question. Between Mitt Romney, he talked about his belief. He talked about caring for people. This is what I believe is the most important thing about me. But with the president, he was just doing viewpoints saying, I took care of the economy. I took care of Osama bin Laden. I took care of terrorism. That's what I did. He didn't really give any feeling. Like I said, you need to give some feeling. If you don't, people are not going to be interested. In that point, just having accurate information and being very focused is one thing, and aggressive, but you have to have sympathy. You have to have compassion. Compassion towards the people in the audience. Compassion to the people you're talking about in your comments. It's very important. That's how you win people over. And he didn't do it. So who do I believe won this debate? I'm going to say it like this. With Barack Obama was the question, will he have more energy? Yes, he did. He was much more energetic. He was much more focused, and he was much more aggressive. But comparing to Mitt Romney, even though he didn't show as much as he did, he was aggressive as well, but he was more respectful. He had more sympathy, and I believe he was a lot more honest than the president was. You can still say that both of them lied about things. That's true. But I believe Mitt Romney showed a lot more honesty, and he showed a lot more compassion and empathy for the people in the audience, the people at home. I really believe he did much better. So this is how I see it. The first debate, Mitt Romney was here. This is what a president was. If you can see this on screen, my hand's right there. For this second debate, the president came up about here, and Mitt Romney was here. He didn't lose by much, ladies and gentlemen, but it is obvious the president didn't do that well still. And I'm sure that they're going to say the president won the debate. He was much more aggressive. He was much more energetic. His points were more better than Romney. But if you really see it for what it was, seeing how the answers from the audience were presented in actual answers that are factual, that were honest, that had emotion. It's very important to have emotion in your debate. You have to give feeling to the people and feeling towards what you say, as well as showing respect to your opponent. I believe Mitt Romney did better in that respect. Overall, not saying the president lost by much. He didn't. He did a very good job in giving his viewpoint and making sure Mitt Romney didn't talk over him whenever Mitt Romney did overtalk the 2-minute mark, just like the president. But I do believe that he spoke very well. He was more energetic. He was more focused. But the problem was, I think what really turned out for it, next to not having complete honest answers, really not be able to give answers to certain things, he had no compassion. He was too rigid. And I don't know how that's going to go off on most people, but from what I can tell, it's important that people get feeling, because if you look at the second debate, when it came to Joe Biden and Paul Ryan, Joe Biden was very aggressive, and he sneered and he gave attitude and disrespect to Paul Ryan and to the moderator. Paul Ryan showed heavy amounts of respect. He gave good viewpoints, and that's what won that debate. Basically, Paul Ryan showed more respect. He was more feeling, and that is how it goes down. So I say again, Mitt Romney won this debate, but not by much. The question now is, how is the third debate going to go, and what they're going to say on news for the next couple of days. We don't know, even though they probably say the president won it. It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the news media is going to see it. So I hope you enjoyed the Zane's View. Subscribe and comment. I'm really sorry it lasted so long. This is like a 41-minute, almost 42-minute video. It's long because it's really important to have an understanding of what's said here. I'm saying this again clearly, like I said in the beginning of the video. It's important to get an open-minded view of this, not the rhetoric that has been said by the Democratic or Republican Party about either candidate. It doesn't matter if you believe the Democrats are really bashing the Republicans really badly, or vice versa. This is about having an understanding of what you're going to vote for, who you're going to vote for, and not worry so much about someone being called a cracker, or worrying about someone. I heard several people call Mitt Romney a devil, and I heard someone call Barack Obama a communist. It's important to know what they say more than what they're being portrayed as, and I say this again. It's important to see the president for who he is, a person, not a black man. And you know who said that? See the person for who they are, not for what they look like. See them for their character, not for their ethnicity. That was Martin Luther King. And I believe he said some of that in one of his speeches of I Have a Dream. He wanted people to see people for who they are. People, not black, not former slave children, just people. So I hope you understand this, and I hope you enjoy the Zane's View. I really hope you subscribe and comment, and I'm really sorry this video is so long. You have a good day.